friendly faces out there, lots of our friends from many places and members. We are going to open our 2025 Norwalk Land Trust annual meeting tonight. We are honored to, can everybody hear me in the back? Is that working? Oh, I have to push this little button. So now we're good. Tonight, we're honored to host a talk by Leslie Danoff, who is the co-founder and board chair of Global Forest Generation. Before our board member, Tanis Lazaris, introduces her, we have a little bit of business to take care of. Our agenda is as follows. I'll provide an update as to what the Land Trust has been up to over the last 18 months. Rich Baskin, our treasurer, will share our financial picture. John Fitzpatrick, who is our secretary, will conduct the vote for our class of 2028 directors. And then Tanis will introduce our honored guest speaker. And so, oh yeah, Leslie, if you'd like to sit up here, that's great, just so you're in a more comfortable chair. So our Land Trust has been very busy. In the late fall of 2022, the Norwalk Land Trust was deeply grateful to receive generous requests from the estate of Donna Gamble. She was a longtime Norwalk resident who deeply appreciated organizations working to acquire and steward open space. As Rich will describe in his financial report, this bequest was a lifesaver for our organization. It allowed us to update a lot of our record-keeping processes within the Land Trust, but most importantly, for our mission, these funds, along with a significant grant from the Norwalk Open Space Fund, allowed us to acquire the Stephen Mather property in the northwest corner of Norwalk. This 6-acre parcel contains the headwaters of the 5 Mile River and is also on the flyway, the Atlantic Flyway. So over the past year, using funds provided us by an additional grant from the Horizon Foundation, we worked with Land Tech to do a flora and fauna study, providing us with important data as to where we might begin to lay trails to open this beautiful parcel to the public. In late 2022, we were awarded a Long Island Sound Future Fund grant for $50,000. Thank you, Mitch. And that was matched in part by our board member, Peggy Holton, to create a bird sanctuary on our Hoyt Island property. And for those of you who don't know, our Hoyt Island property is right off Village Creek in the South Norwalk area. Now known as the Margaret and Steve Holton Bird Sanctuary at Hoyt Island, we will complete the planting plan this summer, and we hope that we attract some migratory and residential birds to visit this beautiful place for years to come. Most recently, the Norwalk Land Trust partnered with the City of Norwalk and the Norwalk River Watershed Association to apply for an urban forestry grant funded by DEEP to plant the first microforest in the City of Norwalk. We're so excited. It's on Meadow Street. It's right across the street from LaJoy's scrap metal recycling plant, and it's down the hill from the new Norwalk Housing Authority Meadow Garden housing complex. We were delighted to be awarded this grant, which will actually help us to provide the garden for the housing complex by transforming what was a rarely used basketball court into one of the largest microforests on the East Coast. Now, some of you might not know what a microforest is. David Grant knows. Microforests are also known as tiny forests or Miyawaki forests. And the Miyawaki method is a technique for creating fast-growing, biodiverse forests developed by the Japanese botanist Akira Miyawaki. And it involves planting a dense mix of native tree species very close together, mimicking natural forest ecosystems to foster rapid growth and self-sustainability. And these forests can mature in 15 to 20 years, much faster than conventional forests. So the Aspatech Land Trust, as I mentioned, I sort of gave a shout out to David Grant, has installed several of these forests up in Bridgeport. And we work closely with them and their consultant to design our Norwalk microforest. And I'm really hopeful that a lot of you will perhaps come out and help us plant these forests in the fall. We're trying to make a little space, I think, for the camera. Finally, I think that many of you are familiar with the Land Trust signature program known as the Outdoor Classroom that we conduct every spring for the 4th graders of Norwalk. This year, we have more than 575 students representing 9 schools visiting Farm Creek, and they're going to be led by more than 24 volunteer guides. And if this work sounds like fun to you, I promise you it is, and we would love to have some more of you to come out and volunteer with us to be docents. And at the end of the meeting, if you guys where's Connie's sitting? Oh, there's Connie. Please find Connie if you're interested in helping us volunteer.
So if anyone would be interested in guiding 4th graders around the Farm Creek Preserve Trails, I lead that program, and I would love to hear from you, and find me after the meeting. Thank you.
It's so much fun to be out there with the kids. So I recently heard a wise woman say that we live in a world that's borrowed from our children's future. When we think about the work that we're doing here in the Land Trust, we always are guided by that wise counsel. So thank you all so much for coming this evening, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to Rich, who's going to talk a little bit about our financial. Oh, he's got to walk all the way around.
Thank you, Lisa.
You have to hold it close. You have to hold it close, otherwise it doesn't do any good. Close to your mouth.
It's on, but it's not loud.
You have to hold it right up.
Testing.
Good.
But thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for all the support that you've given the Land Trust over the years. It's deeply appreciated. Lisa mentioned the Donna Gale grant. That grant was rather substantial. With that grant, we were able to purchase 6-7 acres of Stephen Mather property. It was not at a discount, so you know what land is selling for in Norwalk. So when we also had a substantial portion of the grant left over, and it has really changed the financial dynamics of the organization and what we're able to do. Also, we as Lisa pointed out, we had the City of Norwalk Open Space Grant for $200,000. That was is going to go a long way to opening up the trails and make the property more accessible. And then we have the Hoyt grant, and we're doing we're in pretty solid financial footing right now. As far as our Lisa mentioned that we have about 110 acres under conserved right now, and that's worth approximately $13 million. So it's a substantial amount. With the Donna Gale grant, where our current investment in cash is close to $1 million, so we're in very good shape there. And what we've been doing over the years, we had the Hoyt Island and the Holton Preserve that we mentioned. We've been able to spend almost $400,000 there. John Fitzpatrick family and the state donated a Peatman Preserve up in one of the corners of Norwalk for about $750,000. We turned that into open meadow and trails. And the impact that these funds have had in our stewardship, looking at, on average, we were spending roughly around $10,000 a year in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. And now in the last 3 or 4 years, we've been spending upwards of $50,000 to $75,000 a year on conservation and stewardship. So, again, a large part of this is through your generosity, but a real shout out to Donna Gale. Any questions to this point? You know, one thing I do want to point out is that, you know, the financial situation we're in is both an opportunity and a challenge. First, you know, the opportunity is all the financial resources we have. The challenge is to spend that money, you know, responsibly to conserve and preserve land in Norwalk. And as an all-volunteer organization, you know, as we had Connie asking for, if you wanted to volunteer for the education program, any sort of skills or just enthusiasm we want to bring to the organization, the volunteer, we have open arms. And I'd like to have John.
John Fitzpatrick, I'm the secretary of the organization. It is run by a volunteer board of directors of about 12 or so people, and most of us are here, so why don't you stand up and be appreciated, because the Constitution requires that these people be elected to a 3-year term, and 3 of them are up for renewal this year, and they just stood up, so I won't make them stand up again. Bill Wren is here. He's also one of the master photographers whose work is on display. And Patricia Hine up there in the staircase is the other one, and Lisa Jewett is the third. I don't think she's here. To vote, you have to be, the board does not vote, so the membership votes. You are a member if you pay annual dues, $50 a year. Just out of curiosity, I'd like to ask for a raise of hands of how many are officially members of the Norwalk Land Trust. That is, if you live in Connecticut and if you pay the dues this year. How many people here? Okay, interesting. Well, you're on the board. No, yes, if you have to be not on the board, but you're paying them. Okay.
How about if you're not sure?
Well, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Anyway, I have here proxies that I vote myself for 18 people, so that's more than the quorum. And the question now is, will you vote to re-elect Patricia Hine, Lisa Jewett, and Bill Wren? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And I vote the proxies in favor, so that's it. You're stuck for the next 3 years.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Tanis Lazarus, and I'm on the board for the Norwalk Land Trust. And it's truly uplifting to see so many people here who care about our planet and our community, and many of our loyal supporters. In these challenging times for our environment, we're fortunate to welcome a guest whose leadership is making a real worldwide difference. Leslie Danoff is a co-founder and catalyst for the founding of the conservation NGO Global Forest Generation. As a co-founder, Leslie has worn many hats, among them COO and Communications Director, tackling the most basic tasks to the most strategic in order to enable GFR to thrive. Global Forest Generation's mission is to unite local leaders and their communities across national borders to bring lost and degraded ecosystems back to life.
With GFG's focus on the potential and power of community action, it made sense to the Norwalk Land Trust to ask Leslie to speak to our community. Leslie did not live far from Norwalk for several formative years. When she was a graduate of Yale's first class of women in 1973. Richard Lazarus, leading environmental attorney and Harvard Law professor, describes Leslie as a whirlwind of creative and constructive energy. With her vision, hands-on experience, and dedication to community action, Leslie is exactly the voice we need to hear tonight. So please join me in welcoming Leslie Dama.
Well, I think, can I speak this, but can you hear me? So I don't have to hold the microphone.
Has to
Closer?
be closer.
Closer. Well, maybe I can go closer. It's really wonderful to see a full house here. I had no idea who would come or the age range, and I think that a lot of you are actually around my age, which is interesting to me. It's actually great because I think you may have discovered, as I have, that when you get to, when your retirement age, because some of you are, as I was when I started to do what I can talk to you about, you have a freedom that you don't have earlier in my, I took full advantage of it. I want to talk to you about how I did it because I feel that in this time that we're in right now, which is so fraught, in which every day there's a new sabotaging coming from the Trump administration about just sort of all the things that we worked so hard for. And I graduated in the class of 73 at Yale, and in 1970, that was the first Earth Day, and there was so much hope. And since then, so much has happened under both Republican and Democratic administrations. And we can remember that it was while, Richard Nixon was president that we actually got the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. And what's happening now to me is just beyond a travesty. And I thought of actually retitling my talk. It's like, we all need to get off our butts and do something. I feel like everyone here is doing something. But I feel that we have to really step it up, and we have to figure out how to get those people on the sidelines engaged, because protecting what we've worked so hard, and as, for example, what you protected with the Norwalk Land Trust. I mean, I feel like the protection is going to happen at the community level. It has to. We have some wonderful politicians. They're confused. I mean, they don't know what to do either. And so it's all about, we can't just wait for the solution to come on high. We're the solution. We are the hope. And actually, by getting involved in doing something, it does give you hope. And I'm just going to tell you what happened to me, because I feel like, I'm not saying that everybody would do what I did, and I didn't even know if I could do it until I tried. But there are aspects of what I'm going to talk about that I hope would relate to anybody. And your children or friends or whomever who aren't here, who may not, just coming here is saying something. But I think we all know people who could do more. And so let me tell you how I stepped it up and why. There were several fundamentals. The first one was my motivation, my call to action, and it actually happened in 2017. There were two things that happened. One was amazingly, like the best thing I could ever imagine, and the other thing was the worst. At least I thought it was the worst thing, but the worst thing has happened since. The most amazing thing was becoming a grandmother, which I look forward to for a very long time. And with that came a responsibility, because in our lifetime, my lifetime and in many years, the natural world has just been trampled. It's been, so much of it's been destroyed, and we didn't do it, but it happened during our lifetime. I'm thinking like, what can I do to make things better? I can't, I mean, it actually makes me cry just to, every time I think about it, it's like, what can I do? What can others do? Because we can't make it, we have to make it better. We just have to. So that was my positive motivation. And my other motivation was, this was 2017. So Trump became president in 2017, and I didn't think that, I mean, I just thought I would crawl into a hole or do something. So, okay, I was going to choose to do something. And probably either Trump's election or becoming a grandmother would be enough. One or the other, but the two together, just like, I just became sort of the Energizer Bunny. I mean, I had enormous energy. I didn't even know what I was going to do yet, but I knew it had to be something. I did get an idea. And I thought, well, maybe some people are doing this, but I don't know who they are, so I'm going to try. And my idea was, wouldn't it be amazing if we could fight global warming and poverty at the same time by employing the world's poorest people to plant forests where they are most needed? And I did actually have an inspiration, which was like another, I think, really important guidepost, which was what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did during the Depression with the Civilian Conservation Corps, in which he employed 3 million, well, they were men then, women didn't get the job, but 3 million men to replant the decimated forests in the United States. And in less than 10 years, a billion trees, or 3 billion trees are planted, many of which are in our national parks today. And okay, government should be doing this, but nonprofits have taken the place of governments in so many respects and doing the things that government should do but are not doing. So I thought it would be amazing if you know, the forest stewards could benefit from their stewards, nature could benefit, and people could benefit simultaneously. Okay, so how was I going to do this? I did not know anybody to do this with. It was just an idea. And so I ventured into the unknown. And it was like really wandering in the desert. I mean, I just would talk to anybody that might have that would be a sounding board and might lead me to the next person just to get validation. Did this make sense? And the wandering in the desert, the welcoming the unknown, I feel it's the most important part and the hardest part of starting something new. And that you have to have faith that if you just keep talking to people and keep, you're going to just figure it out. And amazingly, one of my conversations led me to two husband and wife who had started a conservation nonprofit and retired from it, and were trying to figure out what the next thing is that they would do. And we hit it off. And Rita, one of my partner to be, said, you talk a lot about, community reforestation, but you haven't ever seen it, have you? And I said, no, I haven't. I just had this, I read about it and I imagined it, but of course I need to see it. And she said, well, I have the perfect person to introduce you to. We support the American Bird Conservancy, which was the organization that she and her husband had evolved over time. Had supported this conservation, this wonderful Peruvian conservation leader for years. And so in December 2017, we went to Peru, and they had never actually seen, they supported him, but they never actually seen him in action either, because the main event, all of the plantings happened in December and then into January, when it would be the prime time for fundraising for their organization. So it was going to be new to them as well. Well, you know when you meet somebody, when they're just like, oh, this is it, this is the right person, because from the top, even before the actual community planting, which I have a video, and I want to show it to you in a couple of minutes. Before that happened, you know when you met the right people. And it did take, I would have to say, perseverance, because if I'd given up sooner, I never would have gotten as far as I did, and you don't know how long it's going to take. So giving oneself the time to really leave no stones unturned, which in retrospect you could call serendipity, but I think it's just really just being focused on finding the answers to the questions, having many questions, knowing what you don't know, having a certain amount of confidence, and you wouldn't start the process to begin with, but being humble and never being afraid to say what you don't know, and that's been my byword actually. Parenthetically, I think it didn't serve me that well at young, because everybody liked to show that they knew everything, even if they didn't. But I do think that sort of learning what you don't know, like you won't ever learn what you don't know if you don't ask the question. So I was always asking questions. So I could actually describe. I want to actually pick up on some things that I want to show you first in this film. We tried out the video, and hopefully the audio will also work. But just to give you a little bit of information about it, assuming that it's going to work. Salesforce became the our Global Force Generation's first big donor, and they decided that they were going to make also a series of mini documentaries called The Ecopreneurs, and they didn't limit it to just people who were like building things, but also protecting and restoring nature. And they decided to focus on Global Forest Generation's first initiative, and the first initiative came out of Tino Aka. He's the leader that I'm describing, of his work of working with communities, figuring out what it is that they need. Like not talking about conservation initially, but just like really finding out what their needs are, so that they, to build up trust. And then at some point the conversation turns to conservation, but before that, perhaps doctors have been brought to a remote village, or clay stoves, clean burning clay stoves have come to the village, or medicines that have been available come to the remote village. So people, like, they're open to then a conversation about how they might be involved in protecting their lands. So should we try? Tim, we should try the film, and then if it doesn't work, I'll just keep on going. But I do feel that sort of that just having a personal mantra, like all of us, and I mean the way I think about it is that you never know what you can do until you try, and you will be surprised. So even all of us in this room that are doing things now, if you have the time and inclination to try to do more, you will be dumbfounded by what can happen. And there are a number, when sort of a little further along, there are a number of programs that I've heard that the Norwalk Land Trust has, and it just brings me to other questions about bringing it to the next level. But I just feel like we all have to bring everything to the next level and make our community, our communities even stronger than they already are, and really, or find new communities within communities. But this video, if it works, will show a high Andean community. It will also show, and this is something that was brought up by a few of you when I had a chance to speak with you a little while ago, the difficulty of getting younger people involved. And from the very beginning, when we chose the name Global Forest Generation, the idea of generating new forests and protecting existing forests, the name really, I fought for the name because I wanted it to represent the necessary commitment to multi-generations doing the work, as well as sort of the lovely idea of generation, because you're regenerating, but it won't just happen with one generation. especially because of the destruction that's happened. So it has to be ongoing. And within Global Forest Generation itself, from the very beginning, even though well, there are 4 co-founders. Tino Aka, who you'll see in the film, is one of them. It's his inspiration that made him a founder, and really, building on what he had developed over time, so we weren't starting from zero. But it's really Rita and I who were sort of mainstays, and we, from the very beginning, wanted to be sure that we would be mentoring the next generation within our organization, and we also wanted to be sure that whatever initiatives the Global Forest Generation was going to undertake, the first one being in the Andes, because that's what Tino is, would really celebrate and empower local leaders. Like, we had to identify them. Nothing would happen without leadership. And before the film, I'm just going to tell you one anecdote, which was amazing to me. It just shows that how local leaders can discover themselves. So in Ecuador, the video will focus on Peru, but the countries that are involved in our first initiative to reforest and protect a very high altitude, maybe the highest altitude forests, which are called polylepis forests, which have been decimated over the centuries, but since actually the conquest, Spanish conquest. So currently going from like north to south in the Andes, Colombia just started. We have some communities now in Colombia, but initially it was Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru, Argentina, and Chile. And in Ecuador, one of the leaders that I've gotten to know had been born in Ecuador. Then his parents emigrated with their children to Canada. And so John Peretti spent years, he spent several decades actually growing up, going to school, and becoming an appliance. He had an appliance store. He sold appliances for a couple of decades until he decided he was going to sell his share of the business. Went back to Ecuador, opened a mountain climbing tourism business. The pandemic happened. He met Tino, and he had a farm. He started, growing saplings on his farm, and he's a very gregarious person. He got to know the community. And he's basically gone from like an appliance salesman to a local grassroots conservation leader, which just says it all to me. Like, wow, like he never imagined he would do that. He and his wife is also very involved, and he's doing it for their daughter and for all the younger generations, which is exactly how I feel about it. And sometimes when you don't know that something's not going to work, you don't know that you shouldn't even bother trying it. So they knew a military commander in their area, and they decided they would ask him if his brigade could take people and the seedlings, that they were really not saplings, and they're seedlings, up a muddy road. It was like 4 miles up a muddy road for the planting, and the commander just agreed to do it. And the soldiers came not with guns, and there had been unrest in the country the year before. They didn't come with guns. They came with their military band that played for the people, and the soldiers were so excited, like they were so enamored of the whole process that it's become a yearly thing. And so when you get the military of a country involved, then you're thinking, wow, this is starting to be a social movement, which is very exciting. And the military's got involved in Bolivia as well. And that is the goal. I mean, that is the goal of Global Forest Generation. That's the hope for Acción Andina, that all sectors of society will see how important this is and start working together. But, you know, when you start to see pictures or have video of, you know, a soldier working right next to a civilian and of all age, and the kids are involved, it's a multi-generational effort. It raises your spirits and it makes you think that good things can happen. And now let's see if we can make a good thing happen with the video. And if it doesn't, I'll just keep going because I have more things.